The morning sun cast three long shadows across New Haven's main greenhouse dome. Tom stood between his parents, his small hands pressed against the transparent barrier as they watched the strange purple birds glide past. At 8 years old, he still found it amazing that these alien creatures could fly in the thinner atmosphere of their colony world. "Look, Mom, the baby birds are learning to fly today." Tom pointed excitedly at a nest built near the dome's upper curve. The parent birds, with their distinctive 6 wings, were guiding their offspring on their first flight attempts. His mother smiled, running her hand through his brown hair. "Just like you're learning to help with the crops, right?" Tom nodded proudly. He had started helping in the smaller greenhouse sections last month, learning how to tend to the earth plants that needed special care to grow in this alien soil. The work was important. Everyone in the colony had a job to do, even children. The colony of New Haven sat in a shallow valley, surrounded by tall purple-leafed trees that looked like Earth's pine trees, but grew 3 times as high. 12 massive greenhouse domes formed the heart of the settlement, each one carefully regulated to grow different earth crops. Around them, smaller habitat domes housed the 500 colonists who called this distant world their home. Tom's father checked his tablet, reviewing the day's tasks. "The wheat in Dome 5 needs checking. Want to help me today, son?" "Can I bring my camera? I want to take pictures for my school project." Tom was documenting how earth plants grew differently here compared to their home planet. His teacher said it was important work. They were the first generation to grow up on this new world. As they walked to Dome 5, Tom saw one of the gray vessels pass overhead. The aliens who shared this world rarely visited the colony, but their ships often patrolled the skies. They were tall, thin creatures with gray skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Tom found them fascinating, though slightly scary. "Dad, why don't the Greys ever come to visit anymore?" Tom asked, remembering how there used to be more contact when he was younger. His father's face grew serious. "They're very private beings, Tom. They have their own ways, and we have ours. That's why we signed the agreements, to respect each other's space." Inside Dome 5, Tom helped his father check the wheat stalks. The plants grew taller here than on Earth, thanks to the special nutrients they added to the soil. The air was heavy with the smell of earth and growing things, reminding Tom of the videos he'd seen of Earth's farms. Later that afternoon, Tom sat in his classroom pod with 5 other children, sharing their project updates. The classroom's walls displayed images of Earth's landscapes, a reminder of their heritage. Miss Reed, their teacher, listened as Tom explained his plant growth documentation. "The wheat grows 30% taller," Tom said, showing his pictures. "Dad says it's because of the longer days and the special food we give the plants." "Excellent observation, Tom," Miss Reed praised. "This is exactly the kind of research we need. You're all helping us understand how to live better on our new world." As the school day ended, Tom walked home with his friend Jack, both boys watching the purple birds wheel overhead. They passed the colony's boundary marker, where the settlement's motto was displayed: "New Haven, humanity's bridge to the stars." That night, as Tom lay in his bed, he could see the planet's 3 moons through his room's transparent ceiling. The strange constellations had become familiar friends over the years. He fell asleep dreaming of flying with the 6-winged birds, exploring this world that was so different from Earth yet had become truly home. In the distance, unseen by the sleeping colony, more gray ships than usual moved through the night sky. Their patterns were different, their purposes unknown. The peace of New Haven remained undisturbed, but changes were coming. Changes that would shake not just this small colony, but the entire galaxy. The attack came during breakfast. Tom was eating his cereal, watching the purple birds through the dome's clear walls, when the first explosion shook New Haven. The sound was like nothing he had ever heard before, a deep boom that made his chest hurt. "Under the table, now," his father shouted, pulling Tom from his chair. His mother was already running to the emergency panel, where they kept their pressure suits. Through the dome, Tom saw gray ships filling the sky. They were different from the usual patrol vessels, bigger, darker, with weapons mounted on their sides. Red beams of light shot from the ships, striking the colony's outer domes. The sound of cracking plastic and metal screaming filled the air. "Mom, the birds are falling," Tom cried out. The purple birds were dropping from the sky as the atmosphere between the domes changed. Some tried to fly away, but their wings couldn't handle the sudden pressure shifts. His mother returned with 3 pressure suits, her hands shaking as she helped Tom into his. "Put this on, sweetheart. Quick as you can." The emergency sirens began to wail across the colony, their sound mixing with the explosions. Through their dome's walls, Tom could see people running in other sections of the colony. Some were heading for the underground shelters. Others were trying to save what they could from the greenhouses. A group of farmers was desperately sealing off Dome 5, trying to save the wheat crop they had worked so hard to grow. "Why are they doing this?" Tom asked, his voice muffled by his pressure suit's mask. "We didn't do anything wrong." His father was checking the seals on Tom's suit when another explosion rocked their home. This one was closer, too close. Cracks appeared in their dome's surface, spreading like spider webs across the clear material. "Run," his father yelled, pushing them toward the emergency exit. But they were too late. The dome shattered. The sound was like 1,000 windows breaking at once. The air rushed out, taking with it everything that wasn't bolted down. Tom felt himself being pulled by the wind. His father grabbed his arm, holding him tight, but pieces of their home were flying past them like bullets. Something hard struck Tom in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. He tried to breathe, but his suit's air system was damaged. The world started to go dark around the edges. "The stasis pod," he heard his mother scream through the radio in his helmet. "Get him to the pod." Tom felt himself being carried. His chest hurt so much he couldn't speak. Through blurry eyes, he saw they were running to the medical center, dodging debris and energy beams from the gray ships above. The medical center's dome was still intact, protected by stronger materials. Inside, emergency lights flashed red and white. The few doctors present were rushing to help injured colonists. Tom's parents carried him straight to the stasis pods, special medical units designed to keep people alive until help could arrive. "Stay with us, Tom," his mother pleaded as they placed him in the pod. "Help is coming. Earth will send help." Tom wanted to tell her he was scared, but he couldn't speak. His lungs felt like they were on fire. The last thing he saw before the stasis pod closed was his parents' faces through their helmet visors, tears floating in the zero gravity of their suits. Above the colony, the gray ships continued their attack. In their command center, the gray leaders watched dispassionately as the human settlement was systematically destroyed. The injuries to a human child meant nothing to them, merely collateral damage in their mission to claim the planet's resources. They didn't realize that this moment, this single act of cruelty toward a child, would change the galaxy forever. They didn't know that in their victory, they had sealed their own doom. For while the Greys had technologies and numbers, they didn't understand one crucial thing about humans. There is no force in the universe more dangerous than humanity protecting its young. The emergency broadcast interrupted every screen on Earth at exactly 3:47 p.m. Universal Time. Regular programs froze, replaced by footage from New Haven Colony. The images were rough, captured by the colony's surviving security cameras and emergency beacons. In the United Earth Council chamber in Geneva, Admiral James stood before the gathered representatives. His hands were shaking as he held the data tablet, but his voice was steady. 3 hours ago, the gray species attacked our colony on New Haven, he announced. The chamber, usually filled with quiet discussions, fell completely silent. The attack was unprovoked. There was no warning. The main screen showed the colony before and after the attack. The beautiful greenhouse domes, humanity's pride in deep space farming, lay shattered. Bodies floated in the thin atmosphere, protected only by emergency suits. Then came the footage that would change everything. It showed young Tom trying to run with his parents. The dome breaking, the piece of debris hitting him, his small body going limp in his father's arms. The medical readouts from his stasis pod showed severe damage to his lungs and chest. A child, someone whispered in the chamber. They heard a child. The Admiral continued, "We have confirmed 43 dead, 112 injured, and one 8-year-old boy fighting for his life in a stasis pod." He paused, letting the numbers sink in. The Greys knew there were children in the colony. They attacked anyway. On Earth's streets, people gathered around public screens. In homes, families held each other as they watched. In schools, teachers tried to comfort crying students who saw someone their own age hurt so badly. The news spread across human space like a wave. On Mars colony, miners stopped work, their faces dark with anger. On the Jupiter stations, engineers began running weapon systems checks without waiting for orders. Every human settlement, every space station, every ship in the void received the same message. Back in Geneva, the council chamber erupted in shouts and demands for action. But Admiral James raised his hand, asking for silence. "The Greys sent us a message after the attack," he said. The screen showed the Grey leader, tall and silvery, speaking in their clicking language. "The colony's resources are now ours." The translation read, "Any attempt to retake them will be met with greater force. Your species should learn its place in the galaxy." The chamber stayed quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then Council Leader Martinez stood up. She was an old woman who had helped write the first peace treaties with alien species. Her voice shook with controlled fury. "Send our reply," she ordered, "to the Greys and to every species in known space." The message was simple, broadcast in every human language and alien dialect known. "Humanity has always sought peace among the stars. We have shared our knowledge, traded fairly, and respected all life. But today, you crossed a line that no species should ever cross. You hurt our child. You attacked our families. You dismissed our young as unimportant." The broadcast showed Tom's medical readings again, his weak heartbeat displayed for all to see. "This is humanity's response. You have 24 hours to surrender everyone involved in the attack on New Haven. You will return our colony and pay for all damages. You will provide your best medical technology to help our injured." The council leader's voice grew colder. "If you refuse, if you delay, if you try to negotiate, we will show you humanity's true power. We are not just another species you can bully. We are humanity. We protect our children, and we will unmake your worlds to do it." In orbit, Earth's defense fleet began moving. Ships that had been scattered across human space changed course, heading to rally points. In hidden bases across the solar system, weapons that had never been used were prepared for war. The Greys had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were punishing a weak colony. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, and this giant's rage would reshape the galaxy. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility unknown to most humans, Admiral James walked through rows of massive warships. These vessels had been built in secret over decades, hidden from both humanity's own people and alien observers. Each ship was bigger than anything humanity had ever shown to the galaxy. "How long until the fleet is ready?" he asked the base commander. 6 hours, sir. We're loading the Atlas Protocol weapons now." The commander pointed to crews moving large, silver cylinders into the ship's holds. These weapons had been developed as a last resort, capable of cracking a planet's core. Until now, they had never left their storage vaults. In orbit around Mars, 300 merchant ships were being transformed. Hidden panels opened in their hulls, revealing gun ports and missile launchers. What the galaxy thought was a peaceful trading fleet was actually a carefully disguised armada. The Greys' latest message, "Sir," an officer reported, handing Admiral James a tablet. "They say we're overreacting. They claim the child's injury was unfortunate but unavoidable." The Admiral's face hardened. On his tablet, He opened the medical update from New Haven. Tom was still in stasis, his life hanging by a thread. The boy's damaged lungs would need completely new medical technology to heal. "Show me the fleet numbers," he ordered. The main screen lit up with data. 1,000 warships from the lunar base, 300 converted merchant vessels from Mars, 500 fast attack ships from Jupiter's moons, and from every human colony and station, more ships were joining. It would be the largest fleet ever assembled in human history. At the weapons testing range in the asteroid belt, engineers were running final checks on the Atlas protocol. They watched as a test weapon split a small asteroid into perfect halves, the rock cracking from its core. "The weapon works exactly as designed," the chief engineer reported. "One device can destabilize a planet's core in 30 minutes. The planet breaks apart in 2 hours." Admiral James nodded. "And they can't be stopped once activated?" "No, sir. Once the device reaches a planet's core, there's no way to prevent the chain reaction." In the Geneva Command Center, military leaders from every Earth nation gathered. Ancient rivalries were forgotten. Old enemies sat together, planning humanity's response. On the main screen, they watched real-time updates as the fleet grew larger. "The Greys still think we're bluffing," one general said. "Their spy satellites are watching our usual military bases, but those are empty. They have no idea what's coming." Admiral James studied the maps showing Grey territory. Their empire spanned 50 star systems, with 20 inhabited worlds. They had ruled this sector of space for centuries, seeing themselves as superior to younger species like humanity. "Their arrogance will be their downfall," he said. "They judge us by the peaceful face we show the galaxy. They don't understand that peace was always a choice." A young officer rushed in with new intelligence. "Sir, we've decoded their military transmissions. The Greys are gathering their fleet near their homeworld. They're expecting us to attempt a small revenge attack." The admiral allowed himself a grim smile. "They think they know warfare because they've bullied smaller species. They think they know humanity because they've seen our colonies." He turned to face the gathered leaders. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." In space, the human fleet began moving. Ships jumped into formation with perfect precision, their crews driven by a single purpose. Decades of hidden preparation were about to pay off. The Greys had threatened a human child. Now they would face a species that had spent its entire history learning to protect its young. A species that had developed its technology not for conquest, but for defense. A species that had chosen peace, until peace was no longer an option. As the fleet prepared for its first jump, Admiral James sent one final message to all ships. "Remember New Haven. Remember Tom. Show them humanity's real power." The Grey High Commander stood in his control room, watching the space around his homeworld. His fleet of 10,000 ships formed a defensive wall, waiting for the human attack. Reports showed a human fleet approaching, but the numbers made him laugh. Only 2,000 ships. These humans were even weaker than he thought. Then the sensors screamed with warnings. The human fleet didn't slow down to fight. It didn't engage the Grey defense fleet at all. Instead, the ships split into perfect formation groups and jumped past them, heading straight for the outer colonies. "Impossible," the High Commander shouted. "Their jump drives can't be that accurate." But they were. Every human ship jumped with perfect timing, slipping through gaps in the Grey defenses that should have been too small to navigate. On the colony world of Greyhaven, people looked up as their sky turned dark with ships. But these weren't the expected warships. These were massive, silent vessels that took up positions around the planet. They wouldn't dare attack a civilian world, one Grey minister said. It would break every rule of warfare. The human ships released their weapons. The silver cylinders fell slowly through the atmosphere, burning with blue fire. Grey scientists tried to scan them, but the readings made no sense. These weren't bombs or missiles. They were something new. In orbit around Earth, Admiral James watched the first Atlas protocol activation. "Begin transmission to all Grey worlds," he ordered. Every screen, Every communication device in gray space lit up with the same message. It showed the medical pod where Tom still fought for life. Next to it played videos of other injured colonists from New Haven. Then came footage of the Atlas Protocol weapons entering Grey Haven's atmosphere. "You were warned," Admiral James's voice said simply. "You were given a chance to surrender those responsible. You chose not to listen. Now, watch carefully. This is what happens when you hurt our children." On Grey Haven, the ground began to shake. Deep beneath the surface, the Atlas Protocol weapons had reached the planet's core. Sensors showed impossible readings as the core's stability began to fail. "Evacuate." The order went out too late. As ships tried to flee Grey Haven, they found human vessels blocking every escape route. Not firing, just watching, making them see. In exactly 30 minutes, just as the engineers had promised, Grey Haven's core began to break apart. The planet's surface cracked like an eggshell. The human ships moved away, maintaining their perfect formation, as the world literally began to fall apart. "Monster!" The Grey High Commander screamed at the human transmission. "You're destroying an entire world." Admiral James' response was cold. "We destroyed an uninhabited world. Grey Haven was evacuated last week, something your own sensors would have shown if you bothered to look. This is a demonstration. The next world won't be empty." The Grey military leaders watched in horror as their long-range sensors showed 2 more Atlas Protocol weapons heading for other uninhabited colonies. The human fleet hadn't come to fight their navy. They had come to destroy worlds. "You have one more chance," Admiral James announced to all Grey space. "Surrender those responsible for the New Haven attack. Give us your advanced medical technology to save those you hurt, or watch as we reduce your empire to dust." In the Grey High Command, panic spread. Their own weapon scans finally decoded what the Atlas Protocol was doing. It wasn't just destroying planets, it was breaking them down to their basic elements. No technology they had could stop it. "Sir," a Grey officer reported, his voice shaking, "we're detecting more human ships arriving. Not thousands, millions. They're coming out of jump points we didn't even know existed." The Grey High Commander sank into his chair as he realized the truth. They hadn't awakened a primitive species' anger. They had provoked a sleeping giant who had spent centuries preparing for this very moment. A species that had hidden its true power until someone was foolish enough to threaten its young. Humanity wasn't coming to fight a war. They were coming to end one. The Grey Council chamber had never been so quiet. On the massive screen before them, 3 of their outer worlds were now nothing but fields of drifting rocks. 2 billion credits worth of mining operations, research stations, and colonial infrastructure, all gone in less than a day. "We must negotiate," First Speaker Dash said, his gray skin almost white with fear. "Surely the humans will listen to reason." The human response came through their screens immediately, as if they had been waiting for these words. Admiral James appeared, his face set like stone. "There will be no negotiations," he said. "Only terms. You have 1 hour to comply, or we demonstrate the Atlas Protocol on an inhabited world." The Grey leaders looked at each other in panic. Their mighty empire, which had stood for 1,000 years, was being brought to its knees in mere days. Their military leaders had already tried everything. Missiles couldn't catch the human ships. Energy weapons passed right through them, as if they were ghosts. "The terms are simple," Admiral James continued. "First, surrender everyone involved in the New Haven attack. Second, provide all your medical technology to help our injured colonists. Third, sign a treaty giving up half your territory as payment for your crimes." First Speaker Dash stood up shakily. "This is unreasonable. You would destroy our civilization over one small colony, over one injured child." The Admiral's eyes turned colder. "Show them," he ordered someone off-screen. The view changed to a hospital room on Earth. In it lay Tom, still in his stasis pod. His parents sat beside him, their faces worn with worry. The medical readings showed his condition growing worse. The boy's damaged lungs were failing even in stasis. "This one child represents everything humanity stands for," Admiral James said. "Every child is precious to us. Every child is worth protecting. You could have killed him, and you didn't even care." In orbit around the gray homeworld, another human fleet appeared. These ships were different. Massive medical vessels, their hulls marked with red crosses. "We already have your medical technology," the Admiral revealed. "While you've been trying to decide what to do, our stealth ships infiltrated every major gray medical facility. We have it all. We don't need your help to save Tom anymore." The Gray Council erupted in shouts of disbelief. Their most secure facilities, breached without them even knowing. Then why? First Speaker Dash asked, "Why demand our surrender if you already have what you need?" "Because actions have consequences," Admiral James replied. "Because the galaxy needs to learn that humanity's children are not to be harmed. You have 55 minutes left to comply." The council chamber dissolved into chaos. Some members demanded immediate surrender. Others wanted to fight to the last ship. But then something unexpected happened. On every gray world, common citizens began to rise up. They had watched the humans' precision, their power, their absolute dedication to protecting their young. They had seen how humanity could have destroyed inhabited worlds but chose not to. The gray people made their choice. Military bases across gray space found themselves surrounded by their own civilians. Government buildings were occupied. Gray ships began standing down, their crews refusing to fight. "This is Admiral Cole of the Gray Third Fleet," a new voice transmitted. "We surrender our ships and crew. We will not fight for leaders who brought this doom upon us." One by one, gray fleets and colonies began surrendering. Those who had ordered the attack on New Haven were turned over by their own security forces. The mighty Gray Empire was tearing itself apart rather than face humanity's wrath. With 10 minutes left on the ultimatum, First Speaker Dash formally surrendered the Gray Empire to Earth. As he signed the documents, tears fell from his eyes. "We thought we were superior," he whispered. "We thought you were weak because you cared so much about individual lives. We were wrong. Your love for your children didn't make you weak. It made you unstoppable." 3 months after the surrender of the Gray Empire, Tom opened his eyes. The hospital room on Earth was filled with sunlight, and his parents were holding his hands. The advanced medical technology taken from the Grays had healed his damaged lungs completely. "The birds," he whispered, his voice rough from months of silence. "Did any of the purple birds survive?" His mother smiled through her tears. "Yes, sweetheart. The rescue teams saved many of them. They're waiting for us back on New Haven." The colony was being rebuilt, bigger and stronger than before. But it wasn't just humans working on the reconstruction. Gray citizens, ashamed of their leaders' actions, had volunteered to help. They worked alongside humans, learning about the species they had so badly misunderstood. In the United Earth Council chamber, Admiral James stood before the representatives again. This time, the room was filled with delegates from every spacefaring race in the known galaxy. "Today, we signed the Protection of Juvenile Sentience Treaty," he announced. "From this day forward, the harming of any species' children will be considered the gravest crime in galactic law." The alien delegates, including the new Gray leadership, signed without hesitation. They had all watched recordings of humanity's response to the New Haven attack. None wanted to risk facing such power. Tom became the face of the new treaty. His story was taught in schools across the galaxy. Not just the attack, but what came after. How humanity had revealed its true strength not for conquest, but to protect a child. How an empire had fallen because it didn't understand the power of human love. In the rebuilt New Haven colony, Tom stood with his parents in the new main dome. It was twice as large as the old one, built with technology shared by remorseful Gray engineers. Above them, purple birds flew in formation with Earth birds, brought from humanity's homeworld to share this space. "Look, Mom." Tom pointed upward, just like he had that morning months ago. The birds are teaching each other to fly. A gray child stood nearby, watching the birds with Tom. The two children had become friends, part of the first generation to grow up knowing the true story of both species. The gray child's parents worked in the colony now, part of the effort to build a better future. In orbit, ships from dozens of species patrolled together, enforcing the new treaty. The Gray Empire had been transformed. Half their worlds were now shared spaces, where different species worked together. Their remaining territory was peaceful, their people humbled but working to redeem themselves. The Atlas Protocol weapons were sealed away again, hidden in their lunar vaults. Humanity returned to its peaceful ways, but now the galaxy understood the truth. Under the gentle exterior was a species of incredible power, held in check not by weakness, but by choice. Tom grew stronger every day. The medical technology that saved him was now being used to help children of all species. His story inspired new laws, new protections, and new understanding between different races. One evening, as the 3 moons rose over New Haven, Tom sat with his friend, the Gray Child, watching their 2 species work together in the fields below. "My parents told me your people could have destroyed all our worlds," the Gray Child said quietly. "Why didn't you?" Tom thought about this for a moment. "Because that's not who we are," he answered. "Humans don't want to destroy. We want to build, to grow, to learn. But we will do anything to protect our children. And now we protect all children." Above them, in the darkening sky, purple birds and earth birds nested together in the dome's support beams. They had learned to share the space, just as the species below had learned to share the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be feared for its weapons or its ships or its hidden power. Humanity was to be respected for its heart, for its love, for its unbreakable will to protect the innocent. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.